Good morning. I want to look at two-step equations and multi-step equations today. These are the most common equations you're going to see in geometry, and so I want to go back over those and make sure you have a full understanding of those. Tomorrow you will have a short quiz on Schoology on one-step, two-step, and this simple multi-step equation. So if you have any questions, please ask today or before you take that quiz tomorrow. It should be super simple. It'll be multiple choice, but make sure you ask questions before you begin. All right, so let's look. I'm going to start with the two-step. I'm going to go ahead and write those down for you so you can write them down and then pause it to write them down and then watch as I go over. All right, so let's look at the first one. We're going to do a over 14 plus 2 equals 3. We're going to do negative 8 minus x equals 2. And then negative 17 equals negative 3 plus 2r. And then we're going to do negative 7 parentheses n plus 3 equals 112. Okay, so pause that, get those written down, and then come back and watch me work them. All right, so number one, we need to get in equations, our goal is to always get variables by themselves. So our goal is to get this a by itself. Anytime you have an a in a fraction or an a attached to a number, by attached I mean it's written as 2a or any kind of variable, you got to get rid of what is not attached to it first. So we got to get rid of this plus 2. So in order to get rid of that plus 2, we're going to do the opposite like we did yesterday and subtract 2. So when you do that, 2 minus 2 is 0. That cancels out, and you're left with a over 14 equals 3 minus 2, which is 1. Now, this is a one-step equation like we did yesterday. When there's a 14 on bottom of a fraction, it means it's being divided by 14. So the opposite of division is multiplication. So we need to multiply both sides by 14. Remember, what you do to one side, you do to the other. So when we do that, they cancel out, and you get a equals 1 times 14, which is 14. Now, on equations, you can always check your work. Okay, I'm not going to write it all out, but if you were to check your work, you could put 14, and you don't have to do this, but it's an easy way to know if you're doing it correctly. If you put 14 in for a, 14 divided by 14 is 1, and 1 plus 2 is 3. Okay, so a very easy way to check to see if you're correct. All right, so number 2, again, we want to get rid of what is not attached to the variable. This negative 8 is not attached to the variable. The opposite of negative 8 is positive 8, so we want to add 8 to both sides. So we're trying to isolate that variable. All right, so if you add 8 here, negative 8 plus 8 is 0, and that cancels out. Make sure you bring down that whole thing, that negative x. That's the whole thing. The whole reason it's a two-step and not a one-step. 2 plus 8 is 10. Now, we cannot leave a negative variable. Okay, so there are a few things you can do when you have a negative variable. First thing, you can multiply by negative 1. You can divide by negative 1. And all of that's going to do is change the sign. And so if you were to just change the sign to x equals negative 10, that'd be fine too. But multiplying by negative 1 and dividing by negative 1 are also going to do that. All right, number 3. Trying to get r by itself, so we got to isolate what's not attached. This negative 3 is not attached to the r, the 2 is. So we got to get rid of the negative 3 first. So add 3 to both sides because you're doing the opposite. Negative 17 plus 3 is negative 14. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0, so that cancels, and you're left with 2r on the right side. We got to get r by itself, that's the whole point, so we divide by 2. Negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. 2's cancel, and you're left with r. And again, you could check that if you wanted to, but not necessary. All right, the last one here on the two-step equations has parentheses. All right, when you say parentheses, you should know that that means to distribute. when you distribute, you multiply the number on the outside of the parentheses times everything on the inside of the parentheses. So negative 7 times n is negative 7n. Negative 7 times 3 is negative 21. Alright, so same thing we were doing just a second ago. You got to isolate the variable, so you got to get rid of what's not attached to it. So we need to add 21 because we're doing the opposite of minus 21. So when you do that, you're left with negative 7. These cancel. 112 plus 121 is 133. Alright, then to get the variable by itself. Now look, some people mess this up. When they see that negative, they want to add 7. The negative 7 is attached to the n. That means it's being multiplied by the n. To get rid of multiplication, you have to divide. So we're going to divide by negative 7. I don't have a calculator on me, but I believe that is going to be negative 1, not negative 19. Alright, and you can check me on that. I will check myself. Yes. Okay, so if you have any questions on two-step, let me know. Let's look at the multi-step equations that are very important for you to know. Alright, again, I'm going to write a few down. Once I write them down, you can pause it to write them down yourself. Okay, so pause that, write that down. I almost ran out of room right here. This is negative 10 plus 4b. Alright, so let's look at this. Most of these, where you should have seen a lot of these types of equations in your first semester of geometry, where you have a variable on both sides. When you have a variable on both sides, you want to get your numbers on the right side and your variables on the left side. It doesn't matter which one you move first. I'm going to move my variable first. So I want my variables on the left side, my numbers on the right side. So we can set up an easy equation to solve. So we want to move this 6x to the left. To do that, since it's plus, we do minus. So you bring down the negative 4. 7 minus 6 is positive 1, so plus 1. Bring that down. 6 minus 6 cancels. That's what we were trying to do, trying to get the variables off of that side. Now you want the numbers to the right side. And I don't know why I put R here. Well, I was trying to say numbers to the right. Okay, so that's a negative 4, so we want to add 4. So you get 1x equals negative 12 plus 4 is negative 8. Now, if this wasn't a 1, we would need to divide. If it was a negative 1, we would need to divide. But since it's just a positive 1, 1x is just the same as x. And if you divide it by 1, you're still going to get negative 8. Okay? So let's look at the second one. It works the same way. We want to get our variables to the left side, our numbers to the right. So our variable x needs to go to the left. So it says positive. We need to subtract it. And that's just a 1x. So bring down this negative 1. 5 minus 1 is positive 4, so 4x. Those cancel. So it equals 7. Then you want to get your numbers to the right side. So we add 1 because it was negative. You get 4x equals 8. And now we have a one-step equation. You just divide by 4 because it's being multiplied by x. And 8 divided by 4 is 2. Okay? Now again, equations are something you should have learned last year. So if you didn't learn those, this is what I'm wanting to go over. If you did learn them, I just want to give you a refresher. Alright, so let's look at this one. It looks a little longer, but here's what's happening. There are multiple numbers here, which means we need to combine like terms. So negative 6 minus 8 is negative 14, and then minus 6 is negative 20. So now we got the same deal as we did here. A number and a variable, number and a variable. So we want to get our variables to the left. To get negative 7p to the left, we need to add 7p. To get 1 plus 3p equals negative 20. Then, to get p by itself, you want those numbers to go to the right side, so you need to subtract 1. So 3p equals negative 20 minus 1 is negative 21. And then to get p by itself, p and 3 are attached, they're being multiplied, so you need to divide by 3, and p equals 7. Okay, and then the same deal happens on number 4. You got 2 b's on the left side instead of numbers. So b plus 7b, that's a 1. So that's 8b minus 2, because you got to bring that down, equals negative 10 plus 4b. So now we're in the same situation as we were on number 1 and number 2. And we want to get the variables to the left. So variables to the left, we want to get rid of that 4b, so we subtract 4b. So that's 4b minus 2 equals negative 10. Those cancel. Then we want to get our numbers to the right side. It's the same steps over and over and over again. So you want to do the opposite of minus 2, so you add 2 to both sides. So you got 4b equals negative 10 plus 2 is negative 8. And again, 4 is attached to b, so it's being multiplied, and you need to divide. Those cancel, and you get b equals negative 2. Alright, so if you have any questions before you do the work or while you're doing the work, let me know. You're going to have an assignment listed below this, and it is due on Friday, okay, before you take your quiz. So remember that you have a quiz. It's going to be short and simple, multiple choice. Just make sure you know what you're doing, and you're going to submit your work. Okay, so you're going to take the quiz on Friday, and then below the quiz there's going to be a place to submit your quiz work, and that's where you're going to submit it. You just submit me a picture, so I can make sure you're not cheating. Very simple. Hope you have a great day. If you have any questions, let me know.